I built the world's longest crossing speedwall in just 3 days. What's up, Domino community, and today I'm going to share the entire story on how I planned, designed, built, and toppled the world record crossing domino speedwall. I noticed that a lot of people really loved watching the crossing speedwalls in some of my previous videos, so I was like, you know what, let's take this one step further and do a massive crossing speedwall. And I don't think the crossing speedwall is a record that people have really done before. It's sort of one of those underground variation records of domino things. And you know, if I can pull it off in the floor space that I have and the time that I have, then let's try it. I decided to go with a more freeform wavy pattern. I feel like having the lines sort of snake around each other in a more random pattern looks more impressive than something that is maybe too calculated and too like right angles, you know what I mean? I feel like the chaos of the squiggles going through each other makes the speedball a little more interesting in a way. And it's also in some ways easier to build when it doesn't have to be so precise. It was pretty essential that I mapped out the path ahead of time with flat dominoes, because if I started building this crossing speed wall and was just aimlessly making the path, I would definitely build myself into a corner multiple times and I'd be reaching over things and it would just be very risky. So I decided to just make a full plan and just ensure that all the colors kind of snake through the entire setup from one side to the other, and there aren't too many of one color in one area. The main thing for the speed wall was that it just had to be big. It needed to be large because I was breaking a world record to celebrate the new launch of my H5 store. So this had to be really spectacular. It has to get people excited to get new merch, which, by the way, today is the last day to get 20% off all my merch. Just visit heavish5.com/store. We've got signed dominoes, brand new limited edition signed posters, which I'm printing out right now, postcard sets, amazing triple spiral puzzles, and so much more cool stuff. Definitely check it out for the holiday season and grab 20% off. But one thing that was fun to figure out was how to creatively incorporate the merch within the setup. With the H5 shirt, I really wanted to find a way that I could show the back of it as well. So that meant that the shirt had to spin in some way. I was playing around with some ideas and I landed on using a shoelace that was tied to a yardstick that's held up on the ceiling. And as the shoelace unwinds, it slowly stretches and gets further and closer towards the domino and can eventually knock it down. And then we have the posters, so I knew this had to be probably somewhere in the back and close to the ground. Although I will say, this is sort of done a little last minute. I would have liked to make the speed wall a little larger to cover the entire posters and domino artist shirt, but you know, I'm still pretty happy with how it came out. But anyways, onto the main speed wall build. In terms of choosing colors, the criteria that I had was, well, just make something bright, make something colorful that uses H5 domino creations, and make it sort of easy for the viewer to follow the path. So I broke it up into 4 distinct sections. We have a green section, a blue section, a yellow section, and a red section. And I decided to use an additional color for each of those 4 sections so that you could really see each individual domino. I think in a way, by like randomizing the colors like blue and purple, you're able to identify the specific domino. So that's the thinking behind the color scheme. I will say though, the path did end up changing a couple of times as I built it, just because I was running out of time. I don't know how, but I built this whole thing in 3 days. Like just the speedwall section took 3 days, not including the prep work planning out the path. So if we calculate that, that's approximately 3,666 dominoes per day. And in a structure, I feel like that's pretty fast. I was really speed building here. Another fun thing that I wanted to try was incorporating some hidden designs within the path. So I decided to put my classic H5 logo, of course, and I also decided to make a puzzle piece because it sort of fits the theme of the merch, and we have this brand new amazing triple spiral puzzle, and I think the puzzle, like the shape of a piece, would work really well with a speed wall. So I built those with the blue and purple. I made sure that those would be the last things to fall, so it's really easy to see the design afterward. Building was going pretty well, but I actually did have a fail like right in the beginning. So I just had my first fail. This is a little scary because everything in this structure is all connected, which means I can't really make a mistake. If I knock down a piece, like, there's a chance that the entire structure could fall over. I placed the domino here and I think I may have applied too much pressure, which tipped it over, luckily in the direction that I was building, and it didn't knock down the rest of it. I am very scared and I only have a couple of days to build this. Like, if I fail in this, we don't have a video. The stakes are high. I need to finish this and I cannot mess up. After that fail, I did incorporate the weight technique where you put extra dominoes on top of your structure so that if the speedwall does fall, hopefully the weight of it will hold it down and it won't topple the rest of the speedwall. Very luckily, I didn't have any other fails in the setup that would knock down the project in the opposite direction. So I got super lucky with that. Something that I was kind of nervous about was that I was using only 5 layers for the speedwall. I didn't really have time to test 5 layers, so I was really just like hoping for the best and praying that it would work. There could have been a pretty big chance that this whole thing was just a complete fail. But I think having the full domino line underneath helps it a ton. And also, specifically using H5 domino creations, I truly believe those are the best dominoes for speedwalls, just because the thickness of the domino, like, it helps for the vertical dominoes to like stay where they are. Like, it's a very easy placement, and because of the surface texture, when you place the vertical domino on the flat domino, it sort of just like stays in place. Like, it's a really great feel to placing the domino on a speed wall with H5 domino creations, and it just made this whole build so fluid. Now, although this build was a little stressful because I only had 3 days to finish it, it was quite relaxing in some ways because I didn't really have to think much. I was just placing dominoes. I had already mapped out the path, so I knew exactly what I needed to build, where to build it, and could see the progress as I was building this very easily. After doing something repetitive like this, you really find a way to get into your rhythm with building, and I discovered that no matter what position I was in as I was building this wall, I noticed that I sort of had this like preferred way of holding the domino when placing it. Whether I'm like sideways facing the wall or like straight on facing the wall, there was a specific way that I could hold the domino to decrease the risk of it toppling. So when placing the vertical standing dominoes, I noticed that if I had a finger on either side of the domino as I placed it, then it couldn't fall over because my hand was there to catch it. And for the flat dominoes, I noticed that if I hold the domino on the long side, there's much less chance that I'm going to accidentally knock down the vertical standing dominoes next to it. So that's kind of one way that I perfected my building technique, and doing this from various angles, I really learned the best ways to set up a speed wall that work for me. And I was a little worried about the crossovers because in some videos I've seen when the crossover falls, it'll knock down part of it early, and I really didn't want this to happen. It would sort of ruin the effect if part of the speed wall toppled early. So something I did as an extra safety precaution is I put flat dominoes on top of the speed wall next to where the crossover happened. So for example, if this line fell first and it accidentally tapped the wall that it was crossing over, these flat dominoes sort of help the vertical standing dominoes stay in place so they don't move. So I kind of describe it as a stabilizer domino. Now, the nice thing about building the speed wall was that I could kind of build wherever I wanted to in some ways because I had mapped out the plan ahead of time. I could sort of build the speed wall in different sections simultaneously, which was really nice because I could build part of the wall in a different spot not connected to the rest of the speed wall, and I'd have that safety in knowing that if this does fall over, it's not going to knock down like the entire thing. So building part of the path a little bit ahead and then working my way backwards to connect it to the path that I had already built was a really good strategy. Towards the end, it did get a little more hectic. I was being a little more cautious of where I was placing the dominoes to make sure that I wouldn't knock it down by accident. There was actually one spot next to the rainbow spiral poster where I did have to build myself into a corner. That was the only place where I probably couldn't have like built normally. But luckily, you know, I am a small person, so I was able able to fit in that spot and fill in all of the gaps and climb over the speed wall and not knock it down. Something that I noticed that was very apparent, particularly with this build, is how dominoes are truly a mental game. Like, knowing that it could fall over and knock down everything at any second, like, that's kind of a lot of pressure. But when you can alleviate that pressure by having a safety gap or building it in a specific order so it's not going to knock down the rest of the setup, it feels so much easier when you're building. And I noticed when I was filling in some of the safety gaps, the speed that I was building was incredibly slow compared to when I'm just building the wall and I know that there is a safety gap. As a builder, I think it's really important whenever possible to intentionally build in spots where it will alleviate that mental hurdle of knowing that like everything could topple at one moment. But luckily, I finished the setup. It came out incredibly well. I did it all in 3 days, and we have an unofficial world record. It came out so good. Like, I love all the crosses. The colors came out great. It's easy to see the path. I was just very excited to topple it. But first, I needed to add a lead-up line. I think it's always fun to add some extra dominoes before the big structure falls, because it sort of adds suspense and builds towards a really big spectacle. So I made a white domino line, just snake around all of our merch. When I was building this white domino line, I didn't make any safety gaps, except the one leading to the structure. But that was specifically for the time lapse, because I was moving the time lapse with the camera as I was building it, and actually in doing that I had to build the dominoes like laying flat on the ground and like reaching my arm over so that my head wouldn't be in the shot. So I'm gonna play the no cuts version of the fall down from one camera angle, no music. You can just kind of enjoy the topple one more time. So the idea to have me talking in the main video when this shirt is spinning was actually unplanned. Like, I didn't realize how long this shirt would be spinning for in the fall down. When I tested it, it wasn't nearly as long as this. I must have like twisted the shirt a little bit too much, but this was the perfect spot to have like a sort of like break to talk to the camera and like plug more of the merch. So yeah, that was not intentional, but I think it worked really well in the main video. You know, even though it was a pretty hectic end of the build and upload, I am incredibly happy with how it came out. And it showed me that, like, if I really did want to, I could build a huge setup in just 3 days. I just need to focus on it. Just focus on building, and you can accomplish so much. Make sure to check out the new H5 store. I'm so excited to finally launch it. This is something I've been wanting to do for so long, and I'm so psyched. We have new design build topple apparel and limited run posters, so definitely check it out. It's 20% off. Today is the last day to get this discount, so definitely check it out. The link is in the description. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to our featured community member, Alex C. Domino, who made his very first screen link, and I just want to give him a round of applause. Well done. I hope you keep it up. Thank you all for your support. Have a great December, and as always, I'm Lily Hevish, and keep on building.